Right, hello again. We are finished with surds now, and we're moving on to the next topic in that 5, and that is the laws of indices. Now, you might not have come across this word before here, indices, so that's all to do with powers, like we have here, okay? And we're going to be learning about certain rules for how these work, but before we do that, just want to make clear what something like this actually means. So here we've got b to the power of 5. So this bit up here, the little number, that is the power. Okay, I'm going to be using that quite often. And this bit here, the bigger thing at the bottom, we call that the base. So this is b to the power of 5, where b is the base and 5 is the power. But what does b to the power of 5 actually mean? So we should know this. B to the power of 5, that means b times b times b times b times b. Okay? B times by itself 5 times. This is very key to this whole idea of laws of indices, and we need to know this to use all of the laws. Now, there are 6 or 7 of the laws, and we're going to look at 4 of them in this video today. Okay, and the first one we're going to look at is, what do we do? Say if we have b to the power of 5 times by b to the power of 3. So, before we learn the law, let's actually write that out. What would that look like? So b to the power of 5, we already know, is b times b times b times b times b. And we're timesing that by b to the 3. B to the power of 3 is b times b times b. Now, how many b's have I got here? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got b to the power of 8. So, sorry, there's a very badly drawn b. What it looks like then is that if I'm timesing these together, I can just add the powers up, because 5 add 3 is 8. And that is our first law. Now, this only works if the bases, these bits here, are the same. So this only works if the bases are both b's, or both a's, or both x's, okay? It wouldn't work if I had b to the 5 times a to the 3. We couldn't just add them together, okay? So that is our first law. So our first law is that, let's call it, I'll say y to the power of a times y to the power of b equals y to the power of a plus b. Okay? That there is our first law. We'll do some examples of it at the end. Okay? Now, our next law we're going to look at is, what do we do if instead of timesing these, giving you a little clue there as to what we do next, what will happen if we divide them? So what do we do then if I've got, say, b to the power of 6 divided by b to the power of 2? So let's write that out. What will that actually look like? So b to the power of 6, that's b times b times b times b times b times b. You'll see in this why we write b to the 6, because it is very annoying having to write all these out. Now divided by, okay, you can just write it as a fraction, remember, because that's all a fraction is, something divided by something else. Divided by b times b. Now, we can simplify that, okay? This b here can cancel with that one, this b there can cancel with that one, and what we are left with then is 1, 2, 3, 4. b to the power of 4. And that gives us our second law. Because if we look at that, we've just taken those powers away from each other to give us this. 6 take away 2 is 4. So our second law then says that y to the power of a times by, no, I've already messed up. Sorry, y to the power of a divided by y to the power of b equals y to the power of a minus b. That there is our second law. So again, this only works if the bases are the same. You can only do this if it's the same thing you have as the base for each of those. So we'll look at some examples, some worked questions at the end with different bases, so you can see what I mean by that. Now, let's look then at our third law. We've done what happens if we times them and if we divide them. What do we do if we've got something to the power of something? So let's say now we've got b to the power of 3, and that whole thing is squared. What does squaring something mean? It means we're timesing it by itself, yeah? So that means b to the power of 3 times b to the power of 3. So that means b times b times b for that one. And we times that by b times b times b. And how many b's do I have now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. B to the power of 6. And that's going to give us our third law. And we get this because, look, 3 times 2 is 6. So we see that if we've got something to the power of something else, we just times those powers together. And if we write that out as a law, we could say that y to the power of a all to the power of b equals y to the power of a times b. That there is our third law. Okay, now our fourth law is much, much easier. Okay, and we won't even do any worked examples of it. It's just something you need to know. So actually, I'll do this over here. Our fourth law is just a fact to remember, and it will come into play when we look at our other laws later on. You'll see why this is the case. But our fourth law just tells us that anything to the power of 0 equals 1. So it doesn't matter what your base is, anything to the power of 0 equals 1. So x to the power of 0, that equals 1. 5 to the power of 0, that equals 1. 100 to the power of 0, that equals 1. Okay, that's your fourth law. Right, so that's us gone over the three laws. Okay, so first law, y to the a times y to the b equals y to the a plus b. Second, y to the a divided by y to the b equals y to the a minus b. Then third, y to the a to the power of b equals y to the a times b. Now, let's look at some questions that covers that. Okay, so these are some exam level questions. So if you can do these, that is fantastic, but you'll have plenty of opportunities in the homework, I'm afraid. And let's have a look at this first one then, A. So A is saying we've got x to the power of 6, and we're timesing that by x to the power of 4. Now, these are both the same base, so we can use our law. So if we're timesing them by each other, we just add those powers. So x to the 6 times x to the 4, that equals x to the power of 10. B, we've got b to the power of 3 times b to the power of 3. Again, they're the same base, so we can use our laws. Okay, so we've got a power times a power, we add them. So 3 times 3 add 3 is 6. So b to the 3 times b to the 3 equals b to the 6. C. Now we've got y to the power of 10, all of that squared. So this is going to be our third law down here. So if you've got a power to another power, you times them by each other. So here we've got 10 to the power of 2, so that's the same as y to the power of 10 times 2. So that's y to the power of 20. Nice and simple. Okay, D. We've got m to the 8 divided by m to the 4. Now, it is unlikely you'll see it written out like that. Well, how you'll normally see it written in a test or in textbooks is like this instead. M to the 8 over m to the 4. And that means exactly the same thing. Okay, because all a divide sign is your fractions with spaces to put your numbers in. So we've got m to the 8 on the top divided by m to the 4. So let's look at that. We've got m to the 8 divided by m to the 4. And what our second law tells us is that if the bases are the same and you're dividing them, you just take the powers away from each other. So that's going to be m to the 8 take away 4, which is m to the 4. Okay, now you've probably already seen this one and maybe had a small panic attack. This one is trickier. Okay, there's several steps to go through, but all those steps are just the same as these. Okay, so there's nothing actually more complicated in it. We just need to make sure we do it all in order. So here we've got h to the power of 4 times h to the power of 3, and I have just realised that won't work, so instead of 3, let's make that an 8, divided by h to the power of 6. All of that is to the power of 3, and that is times by h squared. So let's just go through it in order. Let's start with this top line here. Let's start with the numerator. We've got a power times a power, so that just means we add them together. So that means I've got h to the 12, plus 4 add 8 is 12, over h to the 6, and all of that is to the power of 3, and then I'm timesing that by h squared. Now, let's deal with this bit inside the brackets. I've got a power divided by a power, and so looking at my second law, that means I take them away. So that means I've got h to the 12 take away 6, which is 6. I've got h to the 6 to the power of 3, and times by h squared. Now I need to use my third law. I've got a power to another power. Remember, that means I times them together. So that means now I've got h to the 6 times 3, 18 times h squared. And then finally, we're back to using our first law. I've got a power times a power with the same base, so I just add them. That's going to give me h to the 20 as my final answer. Okay, so that's how you use those three laws. We didn't do any questions that involved this because that's a very simple question. The answer will always be 1. Okay, so remember, these then are your 4 laws. Your first law, a base to the power times a base to a different power, you add them together. A base to a power divided by that base to a power, you take them away. Then a base to a power to another power, you times the powers together. And finally, the fourth law, any base to the power of 0 equals 1. Okay, so again, thank you for listening.